Hi team, Mr. Harriet here. This is the video for the P1 outcome of linear factorisation, and this is the this outcome we're going to look at using factorisation to rearrange equations. So we're going to be referring back to a previous unit of work as well. I'm going to start by giving you 3 questions just to make sure that our factorising skills are kind of strong enough and ready for this unit. Then I'm going to give you 2 questions on rearranging just to remind yourself of how we rearrange equations, how we can make something the subject of an equation. And then I'm going to go through 2 examples with you, and those 2 examples will set us up ready to have a go at P1 ourselves. So the first thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the screen and have a go at these 3 questions, please. You're going to fully factorise the following expressions. Now, we should have these as your answers, and if we've not got these right, we are going to have to go back and have a look at some Hegarty work. Now, this first one, okay, that is in the Hegarty task 168, okay, so have a go at that task if you've got that first one incorrect. These second 2 will both be covered by 169, and please go back and have a go at one of those Hegarty tasks if you've not got this skill ready yet. That will help you be prepared for this unit. I'm now going to give you 2 questions on rearranging. In each case, I want you to make x the subject of the following equations. Have a go at this, please. Okay, so you should have had a go at both of those questions. We'll go through both of them relatively quickly. Our challenge with this first question is that we have got x's on both sides of the equals. So our first step will be to subtract 3x from both sides. That will give me 2x is equal to a. And then I can divide by 2 on both sides, and I will get a over 2. Okay, is my answer for x. That's rearranged to make x the subject of that equation. For this second one on this side, I've got x multiplied by a bracket. I might have an instinct to start multiplying out a bracket, but I don't need to. It'll make it more complicated for myself. At this point, I've got to multiply between the bracket and the x. So I can divide by the whole bracket on both sides, and when I do that, I'm left with x is equal to 1 minus c all over 3 minus b. Now, if we're not comfortable with these 2 skills yet, we will have to revisit the rearranging unit, and your teacher will be able to point you towards where to do that, or you may search on Hegarty. But we should be comfortable with both those skills, with rearranging these equations and with factorising. What we're going to do now is look at how we're going to do these together. So I'm going to put a question on here for us. Now, if you want to pause it and have a go at this, feel free to, but I'm actually going to go through this one to make sure we really understand. The challenge with this question, that's different from the 2 rearranging questions we've just done. The challenge here is that I've got an x here and an x here. And so I'd like to be able to combine these 2 terms if I could. But the a and the 3 mean that combining these 2 terms is difficult, okay? If I had a number here, I could do it. I'd have similar terms. But because I've got an unknown, it makes it much more difficult for me. I know that what I want to get to, my end point whenever I'm rearranging equations, is to isolate what I want the subject to be. So in this case, I want to isolate the x. To do that, this is where I'm going to use my factorisation, okay? What I can do is I know that these 2 terms, ax and 3x here, have both got a common factor of x, and so I can bring that x outside of a bracket. Okay? I then need to ask myself, what do I multiply to get each of the terms now? What do I multiply by x to get ax? And I know it's a, okay? What do I multiply by x to get this negative 3x, or take away 3x? It needs to be take away 3. Okay? Now in this case, I've not done anything other than factorise this side. I've not done anything to the right hand side, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. My challenge now, and this one looks very similar to a question we just did, I want to get x completely on its own. I want x equals. Okay? And please do make sure we're drawing this line through our equal signs to make sure our equals are all lined up. It will help us as we go through. But to get from this point to this point, where my end destination, I know I'm going to have to divide both sides by my bracket. When I do that, I'm left with x is equal to 4 plus b all over a minus 3. And that is a nice clear answer, and I've rearranged to make x the subject. Now, one slightly more difficult example now is this one here. I'll leave that one there for you, actually. Is this one here, okay? Now, again, I want to make x a subject, and I'm going to identify where my x's are. I've got one x here, and I've got one x here, okay? Now, unlike the example we just did over here, where my x's are both on the same side, I've got two x's on different sides. So what I first want to do is try and make sure that I'm getting all of my x terms, so c, negative cx and negative ax, I want all of these terms to be on the same side, okay? So to collect these terms on the same side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move one of them to the other side. It doesn't matter which one I move, but let's pick the cx, okay? Now, I say it doesn't matter, and if you can, it's always best to try and get as many positive values as possible. Because these are both negative, when I add them, it won't make a difference. So I can add cx to both sides. I'm then left on this side with just g, because I'm adding this cx. I'm then left with 3h minus ax plus cx, and I've just added the cx on. Okay. Now, I also, another key difference, and this doesn't quite look like it did over here, okay, doesn't quite look like it did over here, is because I've got this 3h, okay. Now, this 3h does not have an x in that term. It doesn't have x in there. And so I want to get rid of that 3h from this side of my equation to allow me to isolate the x terms. I'm going to take away 3h from both sides. I'm going to get g minus 3h. And I have negative ax plus cx. Okay? Now I'm starting to get to a point where I've got my x's on the same side, and I've got a situation where I can't combine them. I can't add c and negative a. I can't do that easily. And so at this point, to isolate the x, I can start thinking about how I factorize this side of my equation. Now, when I factorize, I know my common factor will be x. Now, I then have take away a plus c. And on this side, I've not done anything to this side. So I still have g take away 3h. Now, before I finally finish off this answer, I just want to tidy this side up. I don't like having the negative first in maths. What I'm going to do is rewrite this, and again I'm not doing anything to this side, so it will stay the same. And I have x lots of, and I can rewrite this as c take away a, just to neaten it up. Okay, I've not done any maths here, I'm just making it tidier and more kind of usable mathematically. And now I want to isolate this x. I'd like x to be on its own. And to do that, I'm going to divide by c minus a. That will give me g minus 3h, all divided by c minus a as my final answer. Now, that is a relatively complicated question. This is as hard as it will get for P1. Most questions are more similar to the first example we did, but both of them should set you up to have a go. What I suggest you do is have a go at P1, revisit this video if you get stuck, remember to keep your equals in line, and also remember we're doing inverse operations every time we're moving something when rearranging. Any issues, let me or your teacher know, and we will try and sort them out.